reducing population growth. That's this big benefit. The key thing you can do to reduce population growth is actually improve health.
In the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations.
I would like to reduce the number of people on the planet because there's too many of us.
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
With too many people. We have global warming because too many people are using too much stuff.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that. We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're putting them in little kids' arms. We just right into the vein. So in the next 5 to 10 years, for the next pandemic, we'll solve all those problems.
You say the next pandemic, there will be another pandemic.
Absolutely. We don't know when.
History teaches us that the next pandemic is a matter of when, not if.
We know what's next. We're going to have another major coronavirus pandemic before the end of this decade, before 2030.
If we really want to prevent the next pandemic, and there will be one, there will absolutely be an outbreak of another pandemic. It may be next year.
We need more money to plan for the second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic. We have to think ahead.
We definitively will have to face other surprises, black swans, as they are called, and maybe different kinds of viruses.
But also there will be a surprise outbreak.
As if they couldn't make it any more obvious that they are literally planning to subject us to this. When the first one gets proven more and more every day to have been a completely unnecessary event in the sense that it wasn't naturally occurring, it was being illegally funded and studied, and it only presented itself through either malicious intent or at the very least through extreme incompetence. They might as well just come out and say that they're planning a new one because the first one didn't go as well as they'd hoped. I really feel like they're going to have a much more difficult time getting people to go along with the second round though. They probably shouldn't have waited so long. The cat's out of the bag now. No one's going to be willing to listen to their experts when they start warning about the dangers of a new spread. Everyone's just going to assume that they're lying to us again, even if they aren't.
What up, everybody? It's Angel Dust. You are about to watch Larry Ellison, who is worth, and I'm not joking, $369.6 billion. He's about to own the largest percentage of media control ever in the history of the United States. This is breaking all of the antitrust laws, and it's happening through his relationship with Trump and the new deep state. With this relationship, he's going to now control TikTok. Watch this. Say the quiet part out loud.
Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. The first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context when we want to ask a question. We've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. That's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
And the last thing he says, ask it whatever question you want. The question would be about you. Who is a threat to so-and-so? Who's potentially going to commit this crime? Who is potentially this? It's called future crime prediction. It's really dangerous. It's completely unconstitutional, and it's terrifying. This is the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. We need to check these now.
This is certainly where they're trying to go with all of this, but it's not even going to be utilized in the way that they're trying to sell it. Does anyone honestly believe they're going to use this system to look for patterns that could expose real criminals? Of course not. They aren't trying to arrest all their friends. If they really cared about stopping crime, we wouldn't see the same story being repeated every other day. That some innocent bystander who had nothing to do with the accused gets brutally attacked because They let the same guy out of jail 17 times in a year. They just want to look for patterns of those that are against their agenda. Then they'll use AI to fake evidence against them to convince the general public that they're getting real criminals off the street. And they'll have total control over their new cold population in no time. One thing that I think none of them are really taking into consideration, though, is that once they have all of these systems in place, there's going to be a struggle for who gets to hold that top position. They're all going to have this stuff turned against themselves. None of these people want to share authority. There's a 100% chance that there's going to be a constant power grab by all the powers that be until there's only one man left standing. It's pretty obvious these geniuses haven't considered that. Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to drop your theories and your comments in the comments section down below.
Think about the AI training ability, the training data set. There's only so much you can do when you go through the third-party doctrine to get information, because the government's training its AI too. CIA came out stating that they have their own version of ChatGPT, their own AI large language model, and they have to train that on some data set. And so the government needs the largest data set possible. So this is why I think this is the secret boogeyman. They only can get so much from Google and Facebook. But if they just hit it to the foundation, they just say straight to the ISP, and then they can segregate this to ethnicity, gender, region, religion, and then they're training. They're going to feed all this data to their large language model. This is the next layer to get to a minority report level. The whole reason why companies need your data is because they need to predict your actions. They want to know what are you going to buy? What are you wanting to buy? What are you wanting to look at? They need to know future activities, or they need to cultivate those activities by forcing certain types of advertisement. So these are what you would call prediction products, predictive products.
Isn't that ironic? You know, the organization or the entity that has the most truth is going to be the most unbelievable organization because nobody can trust that they're going to give you that truth.
Who would have thought back when they first launched the internet or when they first started manufacturing the smartphone that it was all headed in this direction? And I know that the idea of a one world government trying to yield control over the masses has been around for forever, but I don't think anyone could have known back when they first started rolling this stuff out that these were the tools they were going to use to try to pull that off. And I remember when the internet and smartphones first started rolling out that there were a lot of holdouts. There were people who had reservations about this new technological leap, even if they couldn't articulate exactly what their issue with it was. Some people just didn't trust the technology. Now it kind of looks like all those people that the rest of us made fun of were the only ones wise enough to hesitate. And I'm starting to get highly suspicious that all this technology we have was given to us by dark forces, explicitly to be used for this purpose.
So these are real stadiums from around the world, from an aerial viewpoint. And you have to wonder, if signs and symbols rule the world, what type of symbols are these stadiums? Now, that almost looks like a reptile's eye. And we have, of course, the ancient symbolism of the all-seeing eye. And you got to wonder, because didn't they say bread and circuses? If you want to stop the masses from revolting, you got to give them bread and circuses. So not only are they giving you bread and circuses in here, but also it's a massive, likely ritual football stadium. Now, my thing is this: while we have crazy things going on around the world, we have agendas afoot, we have all types of stuff going on, and people are spending their lives living vicariously through people they've never met, throw balls around in the field. Look, I get it, you're going to roast me, you're going to say, no man, I love my baseball. But when you are truly awake, you know what's going on in the world. You see how much of a distraction it is. It is absolutely bread and circuses. Not to mention when they have a big performance, like major celebrities performing in there, and there's all these like red lights, and it looks demonic. I mean, this is a ritual. Make no mistake.
I've never really been one to focus much on professional sports. It's just never really interested me. But I've also, if I'm being honest, I've always thought that anyone who made these types of accusations was just reading too much into it. I always just figured it was a way to distract people so they weren't paying attention to what was actually going on in DC. But when you factor in what's going on at all these concerts now, that they aren't even trying to hide how demonic they are anymore, and then you look at who they were trying to get to perform at this year's Super Bowl, it makes things look quite a bit more suspicious than just coincidence. I've only been to one game at a professional football stadium in my entire life. This was several years ago when a buddy buddy of mine got 3 free tickets from winning some raffle at work, and we went to a preseason game for the Titans. I only went because he was a friend of mine. Him and his wife were going, and they had a 3rd ticket. I just thought it was a great opportunity to try something that I'd never done before. But still to this day, I look back at that game as being one of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had in my entire life. And I wasn't even paying attention to the game. I still can't even tell you who won it. But it literally feels like you're having energy pumped through your body the entire time you're sitting in those stands. I don't have a hard time believing this at all anymore. I don't feel like it's such a stretch to imagine that there may be something more than just a football game going on at those stadiums.
Y'all, things are starting to get really weird, and this October it might actually be really weird. I'm really starting to think so. We'll come right back to this thing. So do you remember that guy who claims to be a prophet and he talked about the Trump situation before it happened, you know, the bullet, the ear, that whole thing? Well, now he's saying that we are about to see UFOs going across the water. And while he says that, there's this girl who is watching some observatory with a 3-eye atlas, and it showed a whole bunch of ships or things moving with it, which again is supposed to be here on Hallows Eve, the day before Halloween. Let's start here. I'm gonna go ahead and say right off the bat, no offense, dude, I don't trust this guy at all. Yes, a whole bunch of things he said has totally happened. And I'm not saying he's a liar, false, or anything. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's a really weird energy about this whole thing. But so we'll start with this claim of the UFO coming.
Saw these major alien ships, and it flies over the Vatican, and it goes over the Mayan temples down in Mexico. And I said, Lord, is there 2 of these? Because I keep praying about this. And he said, no, it's just 1. And that's what's going to make everybody freak out, because they're going to see it moving across the ocean. You understand? It's going to be something that's going to be on TV. It's going to move across the ocean, and people are going to freak out in the days ahead.
So I'll point out 2 things real quick. The Bible does talk about prophets that are prophesying on behalf of Baal and other deities. And again, I'm not saying it is. I'm just being honest with y'all that I just don't trust him. Because there's an awful lot of corruption and an awful lot of things being covered up and hidden right now by people that are supposed to be heroes. But y'all will find I will not judge anybody's free will. We never know what's going to happen in the future, and we really don't know the grand scheme of everything going on. So now, this girl was talking about this observatory that she was watching, got information from somehow, and she saw all these different ships or things moving with 3-eye atlas. Now, I think it's important right here to mention, we just had that guy from Congress or somewhere talking about how there were aliens under the water. And what do you suppose is in the sky? The waters above? So clearly there's not a freaking spaceship coming to Earth. But it might appear like that for some reason, completely unrelated. Does that not look really weird to y'all? Especially the flip? Completely unrelated to this. Nowadays there is CGI that's so good it looks real as well as AI. But this? Okay. I mean, I'm bewildered. Do y'all not see the things that this guy has flying in the sky? Look at it. Just look at it for 1 second. What does that look like? A spaceship, duh. Now this part's wild. We just happen to have, completely unrelated, the whole shutdown going on, right? So now we really can't receive information from NASA or any of these sources, or NASA, that are following all this 3-eye atlas stuff, right? Humorous. Y'all see the point that I'm getting to? Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna see some stuff soon, but it's not aliens. And it's also not just BB. People have to understand that in the BC, there were all kinds of hybrids walking on the earth. So there are so many different classes of beings. We have demons, we have fallen angels, we have what the fallen angels are doing right now to mankind. I mean, really, what was actually going on beyond Plum Island? Think about it. In the grand scheme, there's so much crap going on that you have no idea how crazy it's going to be in totality. But I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be fun, and they can't stand the name Jesus.
One thing I'm always suspicious of is when someone claims to have had a direct revelation from God. And I mean suspicious enough that I pretty much immediately assume that they're trying to deceive people. And I could be wrong, but I can't help but to think if God really wanted us to have a specific piece of information, he would have put it in scripture. And what could possibly hold more weight with the Christian community if you're trying to deceive them than to get them to all believe that what you're saying came from a direct revelation from God. And I'm not saying that I know this for sure, because honestly, how could I? I'm just trying to use my discernment here. But I really think this guy's just trying to line his pockets, and that's all there is to his biblical revelations. I'm completely convinced he's a false prophet. I'm going to put a link in the description of today's video. This is a video that was created by YouTuber Mike Winger, and it goes through a multitude of reasons why this guy should not be trusted. That being said, some of what he's saying may be about to come true, because he still may be getting prophecies about near future events. But like the guys who first built rockets and founded NASA claimed that they were getting these downloads from dark spiritual beings, that may also be how this guy's getting his information. But if you're putting any weight into anything this guy's saying, I highly suggest you go check out that video.
He said if Trump thinks he's going to contradict or defy the CIA, he's streaming. You know, they have 50 ways from Sunday to get you, right? And traditionally, if you look at the U.S. intelligence agencies, they basically work for the central bankers. So what's happening is we're watching a re-engineering of this fiscal line. And you're basically looking at the central bankers moving to put into place a system that will allow them to extract tax without representation. So that's the trick financially. How do you force the citizens to pay taxes with no representation? And of course, what they're using to do is to roll in the system that will make it possible for them to achieve it. So I'm always quoting Naomi Wolf, who's done a very good job of describing this, and she said, passports are the end of human liberty in the West. And she's right, because it's not really, it's ultimately what it's going to evolve into is a financial transaction system where basically if you don't behave, the central banks can take money right out of your account. They can stop you from transacting. So there's a great, I think we talked about it last time, there's a great panel that the IMF did with Carstens, who's the general manager of the Bank of International Settlements, and Jay Powell, who's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And they're talking about central bank digital currencies. And Carson says, well, the great thing about central bank digital currencies, if you don't want citizens of another country to transact, you can just shut off their ability to transact. And Powell kind of blanches because he knows what that means is, oh, you can cut off anybody's ability to transact. Yeah. If you want complete control, then you want transactional control, but you want transactional control broken down into into both space and function. So let me tell you what I mean by that. You know, I want the ability to say you can only transact 5 miles from your home. You know, so I want you not to be able to travel. Okay, so your electric car or your driverless car can't go more than 5 miles from your home. Okay, but you can't do anything beyond 5 miles. So one is spatial control, but the other is function. You're not allowed to spend money on these items as opposed to other items. So we don't want you eating fresh food. We want you eating, you know, synthetic foods from Bill Gates's companies. So you can only transact according to what we dictate is, you know, approved. I've always assumed that Bitcoin was a prototype.
I'm starting to have strong suspicions of Bitcoin myself. When you think about it like this, it starts to make a lot more sense as to why the creator of Bitcoin has been such a well-kept secret since its inception. And these bankers probably launched it for 2 reasons. One, to build public trust in a digital currency, a product that literally has no monetary value. And 2, to just let it run for a while and see if it gets attacked so they can determine if it has any security flaws, so they can make sure that it can't be broken into, that it's so secure that there's no way anyone else can gain access to it to try to recoup all the money that they've stolen or taken control of. They might even be hoping that people try to run to Bitcoin in an effort to save themselves from the central bank digital currency, and then they flip their built-in kill switch and all the money goes piling back into their account. What do y'all think?
Yeah, we're in a Toyota 2025, and we noticed that on the screen, you can't use navigation unless you pay a subscription fee for it, right? Which is insane. Like, you can't just hook your phone up and use navigation on your phone. That's free. So we looked at the subscription fees, and it's $15 a month. It's also $15 a month to stream music to the actual screen in your car. Okay, together it's $25 a month. Then it's, I also saw somebody on a forum say it's $8 a month to be able to see your oil level and your tire pressure. The car's like 40 grand. Oh yeah, remote start. You have to literally pay a subscription fee to get remote start. The vehicle is capable of all these things. What the?
So I have a Toyota product. I needed to go to the dealership. They gave me a loaner. With the loaner, she's giving me instructions on how to start the car and all that. Honestly, it just was overwhelming and overstimulating. It wasn't just a regular norm for this 2025 situation. And it had cameras in it. And I don't mean just in it like for your safety. It had cameras to where it's watching you drive to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. So if you touch your phone, the car's going to decelerate, do all this different stuff. And also, if it's tracking other cars, everything around you, so the car automatically decelerates, does this, does that. And that seemed interesting enough, but when I connected a device for the Bluetooth, it kept disconnecting every time I got in the car. And she was stating, oh, that's because it's based on subscription. And when she told me all the things that were a part of said subscription, mind you, the Toyota product that I'm talking about, they're about over $70K for the vehicle I was in. Brand new for what I'm looking at. So you're telling me what I paid for my car, right? My vehicle. And it's on the same with that. And you think I'm going to trade my car in, which still has buttons that I can press for my sensory self and feel and do all the things I need to do. And you think I'm going to trade it in for a car that's literally watching me when we're already in that kind of state of where you're being supervised or being watched all the time. And you think I want that, when I know for a fact a lot of these cars are autonomous and they're saying they're not, and they are. So in the event you don't want to drive your car somewhere and they're telling you to turn it in, that car will be able to literally turn itself in. It was about over a decade ago, I was in a Ford renting it, and the car, if I went over the speed limit, the car literally decelerated on its own. So I know for a fact these cars can drive themselves if they don't want you to go somewhere you won't. So you better be careful. If I were you, I would invest in these vintage cars from the 1950s.
I don't know about going all the way back to the 50s. That seems a bit extreme. 70s and 80s maybe. But I'm starting to see a lot of manufacturers talking about going in this direction. Our newest vehicle is a 2025 Kia minivan, and it doesn't have any of these subscription plans. But it does have a lot of these safety features, like automatic braking and assisted steering. But this is my wife's van, and I can't drive the thing for more than 15 minutes unless I deactivate that assisted steering. It'll literally make your arm hurt because you're fighting against it because it wants you to hug the inside lane. And the automatic braking thing has almost caused me to have an accident twice, and we've only had the vehicle for a year. We've had to deactivate basically every safety feature that's offered on the vehicle in order to drive it and feel like it's not going to cause us to have an accident. But all these companies are doing is creating an overpriced product that no one's going to want to purchase, as if paying more than $50,000 for a new car wasn't expensive enough. The greed from these corporations is just out of control.
This river is drying up, revealing something underneath that proves what many ancient texts have predicted thousands of years ago. The Euphrates River is in the Middle East, running through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, and also happened to be the main source of water in Mesopotamia, where the ancient Sumerians originated from, who are one of the earliest known civilizations ever and believed to have descended from the Anunnaki, but I'll save that for another video. The Sumerians left behind thousands of clay tablets like these that they recorded their lives on in a writing system called cuneiform, where they talked about things like beings coming down from the sky and bringing the gift of civilization to humankind, but don't worry, another time. So you could imagine the area around the Euphrates River is rich in ancient archaeological artifacts. Well, it's drying up fast. Experts say it may be completely dry by 2040. What's scary is that they're finding ancient cities, castles, gold, man-made caves carved into the rock that have been under the river for thousands of years. The reason that's so scary is because this exact river drying up was actually predicted in ancient religious texts like the Bible. Revelation 16:12 reads, "The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east." And then Revelation 9:14-15 says, "Release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." So the four angels who have been prepared for the hour, the day, the month, and the year were released to kill a third of mankind. So the river dries up, containing four fallen angels that are released to destroy a third of the world. Nice. And it doesn't end there. Even the Quran mentions this river, saying, "The hour will not come to pass before the river Euphrates dries up to unveil the mountain of gold for which people will fight. 99 out of 100 will die in the fighting, and every man amongst them will say, perhaps I may be the only one to remain alive." Different, but kinda similar-ish idea. Now, I'm not here to get into a religious debate. My point here is that ancient historical texts written hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, do talk about the Euphrates drying as a significant event, leading to the wide-scale destruction of humanity. Man, these videos have been dark lately. Ancient relics like like those found in the dried river, hold immense value to historians as well as religious scholars and groups, like the Dead Sea Scrolls back in 1947, where a group of teenage shepherds came across a bunch of old clay jars in some caves along the Dead Sea. The clay jars were filled with old tattered up scrolls with Greek and Hebrew writing on them, which turned out to be some of the oldest recovered written records of biblical text ever, over 2,000 years old, containing both exact excerpts from the Bible as it currently stands, and uncovering entirely new, previously unheard of biblical writings like the Book of Enoch, which talks about some crazy stuff that went down. I can see why they took it out, but I'll also tell you all about that in another video. These scrolls were discovered in the Qumran caves in the Palestinian territory of the West Bank, a similar geographical region as the Euphrates River in 1947. And guess what happens just a year after these were discovered in 1948? Israel officially declares independence of their land, where they claim these scrolls were found. Good timing, right? For the next 10 years, they continue to uncover more and more scrolls in the area in an attempt to establish religious dominance over their history. More recently, in 2021, they found new Dead Sea Scrolls in caves south of the original location, over 60 years since the originals were found. Here's where it gets interesting. Along with these scrolls, further excavations revealed 4 2,000-year-old Roman-era swords in nearby caves, which are thought to have been stashed in these caves during the Bar Kokhba revolt, an armed Judean uprising against Rome in 132 AD. So Roman-era remains can lead to archaeological discoveries of religious relics like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and possession of these relics equals a source of dominance among religious groups. Keep that in mind. Now, the real kicker, just a few months ago, an entire Roman-era cemetery with over 100 tombs was unearthed in a nearby region. Where exactly? Oh, interesting. In July to September of 2023, there was a surge of articles reporting this discovery, with the number of tombs exceeding 100. And I wonder what happened there after September. Tombs of Roman aristocrats, which we've seen in the past, could be indicators of groundbreaking historical findings like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the thing about religious groups, they all want to be the first to get their hands on these relics, like the Ark of the Covenant, for example, doing whatever they can to beat everyone else to those discoveries, no matter the cost. Hey, I'm not implying anything here, just stating historical facts. But it makes you wonder what might be under the Euphrates River as it continues to dry up, and whether these archaeological discoveries really will lead to humanity's demise, as stated in these historical religious texts, whether through some cataclysmic event or just us fighting over them.
And if you thought we may actually get some updates on the excavation there, recent reports claim that the cemetery has been severely damaged due to bombing and bulldozing, and its current condition is uncertain, which sounds to me like it's been demolished. We'll likely never know the true significance of what was found there. Looking at the timeline of this discovery, this sounds eerily similar to when they came out with reports saying that they thought they had discovered the tomb of Gilgamesh, and then the US immediately invaded the area to launch war. Of course, I have no way of knowing if these things are connected, but considering the timeline, considering how terrified they seem to be of us actually finding out any factual details about our true history, it's certainly a connection worth considering. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to drop your theories and your comments in the comment section down below. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.